Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Character Clinic. My name is Carla,
And I'm Haley.
and we are here to talk about our most relatable fictional characters and talk about ways that we might work with them. So, today's episode, I'm super excited for because I'm a huge anime fan. So, we're going to be talking about One Piece today.
Yes, this is one of the media sources that we've kind of been planning from the very beginning that we were always wanting to include. Even though we've been planning it this long, we've also gotten comments and suggestions to do this one because it's wildly popular. So it's something that I think is going to be really exciting. I have only seen the live action, the full season one live action version of One Piece on Netflix. I am going to go back and watch the actual anime, but what is your experience with it?
Yes. So I actually watched the live action first. So a lot of people that are hearing this, or people that know me that are hearing this, I have had many people throughout my life tell me to watch this anime. And I'm kind of like a resistant person a little bit. So I would be like, oh, whatever. Like, I'm not going to watch it right now. And so for years, I didn't watch it. And then the live action came out, and I watched the live action. I thought it was great as someone who had not watched the anime. And then it got me to start actually watching the anime. And I love it. I love the anime so much. It's a masterpiece of an anime. And I think the live action was great also. And I'm looking forward to the next season. And Haley's gonna watch the anime, and I'm excited for you to watch it. All it's it's really sad at times. It'll be a tear jerker at times, but it's also like a very bubbly and fun anime. But yeah, it's just a beautiful anime. I'm really excited for Haley to watch it, and then maybe we can do a character that isn't in the live action yet.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely really excited to go see that because I know there's going to be so much more to the story, and I have already going to love these characters so much. Like they are incredible. I can definitely see some areas that might be coming up for me that are going to be hard to sit through, but I'll brave it.
Yes, and this anime has character development for like every character that you can think of. Even, I mean, this is not a spoiler, but even animals get character development in this anime. So, yeah, all I'll say is Laboon. If you know, you know. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right, well, I can't wait. And this is a message for anyone who hasn't seen it, who's just kind of casually listening. I guess Carla's telling you to go watch One Piece.
So yeah, we'll go ahead and well, actually, I guess, do you have anything interesting, anything fun, any updates, any highlights of your week?
Not quite, but next week is my birthday. So there's that.
Yeah, that's exciting.
What about
Yeah.
for you? What's been going on?
This week has been a pretty chill week. I started watching a new anime. It's called The Apothecary Diaries, and it's really fun. And I really have been enjoying it this past week.
Very cool. Maybe it'll be something we
Yeah.
incorporate later.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll go ahead and get right into our intake. So, in this intake, I am going to be our character, and Haley is going to be the counselor.
It's great to meet you. Would you like to tell me a little bit about what brings you in today?
Yeah, I am trying to just process a decision that I have to make that I'm really conflicted about.
Okay. Is there anything that you'd like to share about this decision? Maybe we could kind of brainstorm some of your options together.
Yes. So I, for a long time, have been a part of a crew, and not out of not because I wanted to, but in order to really protect my where I live and the people there and my sister. And I'm so close to my goal, and all of a sudden in the last few months somebody has come along and just started to change my perspective on some things, and I'm having a hard time going through with something that I really have to go through with. So I'm I don't know. I'm very conflicted and having some doubts about going through with what I really have to go through with.
Okay. So I'm hearing you talking about protecting your sister and your home. Protecting them from what?
I guess I guess you might need a little bit of backstory. So when I was young, a group of pirates came to my village and they came and were asking for money, and my mom, we grew up poor and we didn't have enough money, and so she ended up paying for me and my sister, but she didn't have enough money to pay for herself, and so they killed her. And now I actually work for them, and I have to work for them so that they can let my village set my village free, basically. And I'm really close to my goal to have them set my village free, but I really need to give them something in order to do that. And these new people that I met, they have that thing that I need to take, basically. I need to steal it. And normally this would not be an issue for me because I hate pirates. You know, I'm a part of this crew, right? But I do hate pirates. But this guy is just keeps talking about how we're different kinds of pirates and they haven't like hurt anybody. And I don't know if I can go through with it.
Okay. So I definitely want to touch on this decision you're working on. And you mentioned a lot of really devastating things that you've had to go through. Watching your mom die, having to work for the people that are responsible for that. And it sounds like you've been very separated from your sister in this village for a while. Is that right?
I have to. I The villagers, they actually have no idea. They just they kind of I betrayed them, and they think I betrayed them, and I'm okay with them seeing me in that way as long as they don't. I just don't want anybody to get hurt anymore.
Okay, so you are taking on an exclusive role working with the people that were responsible for your mother's death without your sister, your family, or the rest of the village being aware that you are working to help them, that you are working for some kind of double agent for these people that go around hurting people. And you've just taken on this burden completely independently. Nobody knows what you're doing.
Yep. That's about right. I mean, I wouldn't want them to know because I wouldn't want them to, like, I know the villagers. I know that they would come to my defense or try to get like try to figure something out, and I already know that none of that's going to work, and I already have this plan, and I am so close. I would not want them to find out and then for something to happen that ruins it. So, I'm okay with them seeing me as the bad guy as long as I can free them and have them no longer like owe money to these people.
So you feel that you are really just the only person with the right plan that's definitely going to work out. Anybody else helping you, knowing about it, or trying anything on their own, or even with you, that would just not work. We might as well not bother trying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these people, they came to my village and they terrorized them. And they like the villagers are not strong enough to do anything. These people are really powerful. So I have this plan and I think that I'm pretty sure it'll work. I mean, I put years into this plan. And so, yeah, I hate that I'm even questioning things because of this kid.
Sounds like you've taken on a tremendous amount of burden and responsibility to do right by what happened to you and your family and your village unilaterally. And you've been going down this road all by yourself for years.
Yeah, I mean, my mom should not have had to die in place of me. I wish I could have done something.
It's a very
back then.
devastating situation that you had to be through. It's a devastating thing that you had to go through.
Yeah.
Can I ask, how do you process your grief?
I mean, I hate pirates. I steal from pirates because pirates, they are all bad. And just like the things that they did to my village, pirates will go around and do that kind of thing to other people and they hurt people. And so I don't care about stealing from them because they also steal and kill and hurt. And so that's really how I sleep at night.
Okay. So, your version of processing grief looks like retaliation and retribution.
Yeah. I mean, what else is there?
Do you mind if I describe a little bit about things that can come up with grief that I think I might be hearing here? It's very common for us to not feel quite capable of handling the sheer weight of grief. It is absolutely one of the most intense and difficult things that we go through. Very frequently, anger and things that come of it, like a tendency towards this retribution, this revenge, tend to act as a shield. Most people who experience a lot of anger are experiencing that anger as some kind of shield in front of them to protect them from experiencing the actual emotions underneath, which in this case might be grief, might be guilt, might be a tremendous amount of just deep sadness that I'm not hearing that you've allowed yourself to experience and process through. What do you think?
I guess it makes sense, but I don't see how that would be useful. I mean, I would, I feel like I would just then be destroyed. And how would I be able to keep going if I was just sad all the time and crying? And it just, it feels pointless.
Yeah. Those are very interesting words that you use there to describe that experience as pointless and to think about the usefulness of experiencing your emotions. That becomes very frequent. A lot of people really view their emotional experiences as just little obstacles that make things a little bit harder that we have to just avoid at all costs in order to be focusing on achieving whatever other goal there might be. And
Mhm.
what's interesting is if we think about it, emotions are biological reactions that are there with very specific purposes to inform our brains about what is going on in the environment and how we feel about it, how we make sense of it. And while it doesn't fit into typical definitions of productivity for sure, in terms of you feeling that you are living a life that is fulfilling and meaningful and satisfactory to you, adjusting your experiences to your emotional reactions and processing through your emotions is generally how we get to a place where we feel like we understand ourselves and the world around us and how we feel like we can handle things when they come at us.
Okay, so is what you're saying that if I let myself feel whatever feelings come up, then I will actually deal with things better?
I think that's possible. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm a little skeptical, to be honest with you.
That's perfectly understandable. You have been singularly minded toward this one goal of basically avenging your mother for years. And we're not about to make any drastic changes to that in a single conversation. Not that I'm suggesting that we have to make a drastic change to that. But it's interesting to look at and see whether there might be more options available to you in your life than you realize. And that kind of brings me to the other thing that you were mentioning, this decision you have to make about these new people that you're spending time with. It's very interesting that, again, this very single minded goal that you've had, this burden that you've taken on all by yourself for so long, is being called into question by a couple of people that you spent a little bit of time with, they must be
Yeah,
pretty significant people to have that amount
I
of
don't
impact on you.
yeah, and I just have to say that I don't like it. It
Mhm.
feels icky. I don't like it.
You're not happy about them kind of having an impact on you to the point that it makes you question your perspective and your goals.
Yeah, because like I said before, there's a very good reason for this, and I don't like that they have this influence on me. I feel like it feels wrong.
What would it mean to you if you were to find out that there might be some different way of achieving your goal that included receiving help and understanding from other people that actually still gets you what you're hoping for?
In theory, it would be nice, but I don't think that anybody should get hurt in order to help me.
I hear that you have experienced a horrific amount of trauma watching other people get hurt, and the idea of having to see that anymore is terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, nobody knows how strong these guys really are. Even the guys that I'm with right now. I mean, if in theory would offer to help me, I don't want them to get hurt. I they don't really understand how strong these people are.
Nobody but you understands the level of risk here. Nobody but you can handle it. And you are the protector for everyone else.
I guess when you say it like that, it does sound like impossible.
It sounds like a lot. It sounds difficult. And at the same time, I find it understandable that it would really feel this way. It's really not uncommon at all for people who've experienced trauma to start to feel very, in some ways, hyper independent, hyper vigilant of any possible concerns. Sometimes we even engage in a lot of self blame or a lot of anger or a lot of focus on, I have to fix this, because the idea becomes, if I can create the illusion that I have enough control over this reaction, then it tells me that I can control the situation. And that is comforting to me because then I can prevent this from happening again. If we acknowledge that maybe any one way isn't the necessarily one right way, then it feels scary because it invites in uncertainty. And uncertainty tells you that you might not have total control over the situation. And that tells you maybe we're not capable of definitely preventing bad things from happening, which is terrifying.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what your current thoughts are about this decision that you have to make and the people that might be impacted by it.
I'm with a few guys and I I really like them, but I would never tell them that. They are actually different from other pirates I've encountered. So I feel guilty about what I have to do.
And you would also feel
And
guilty if you didn't do it.
right, exactly. I think though that this is an anomaly. These guys might be different, but there are no other pirates that are this way. And maybe they are, maybe they might be different right now, but maybe down the line they might hurt people. And so I really shouldn't care
Mm.
so much if I steal from them. It shouldn't be a big deal.
But they don't currently strike you as the kind of people that would go around hurting anyone. Very unlike the kind of people that you're used to, especially the kind of pirates that you're used to.
Yeah.
I wonder how it would feel to be able to join them, to be able to help them on their quests and become a part of something, feel like you belong to a group that isn't going around hurting anybody, and maybe even having your family and the village where you came from aware that you didn't hurt them the way that they might think that you did.
That would be really nice.
I think that's an interesting thing to ask yourself and think about how that could feel and what you might want to reflect on your decision about that.
Yeah.
Well, trauma is definitely something that we don't want to unpack in just one session. We spend a lot of time going through it very delicately, making sure that as we reprocess your traumatic memories and help you move out of this fight or flight, I have to do something, I have to fix it kind of mentality, and into something that might feel a little bit more at peace with how things have gone for you and what your future could look like. We also don't want to just reactivate and re traumatize you by forcing you to relive those experiences. So we go slowly. That might be something that we contain for a little bit for today and continue on in our future sessions. Does that sound all right with you?
Yeah.
Okay. What else would you like to talk about for today?
I guess that's really it.
Okay.
Don't really have anything else.
It sounds like you have some things to reflect on about this decision. Maybe that's something that we could continue talking about as well, and reflecting on what all of your options might be and the way that there might be possibly many more options to you than we're currently seeing. And maybe things don't have to fall in one extreme or another. And maybe it is possible to have help and to work with people and to actually feel pretty supported.
Maybe.
Maybe. I'll take that for today. Does that feel like an okay place to end for today?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I guess we'll plan to resume next time.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So, would you like to reveal which character we were focusing on for today?
Yes. So our character, the character that we were focusing on for today is Nami.
Yes. I think that became quite clear with her story, but she's fantastic. I love all the characters so much, but especially how her story, at least in the live action, her story kind of ended up becoming the main climax and the main resolution of the entire first season. And it was a big focus. And as always, as like every time that we talk about how did that intake go afterwards, I found myself noticing more about it as we talked about it, as we did this role play. What about you? How did it go for you?
Yeah, I thought it went really well. I liked that you talked a little bit about trauma and what that can look like, how that can be, anger can be a secondary emotion or an emotion that is maybe a little bit more okay or acceptable for people to feel rather than actually feeling the grief of what's happened. And I think that Nami is a character that would not respond to that like immediately. Like it's something like it's planting a seed, but because she has had this one goal from since she was a kid, it's something that like it would just slowly need to be worked on. And so I liked that there was that planting of that seed in the beginning and also an acceptance of like it's going to take some time because again like this is the first time that anything has been questioned for her. Like Luffy is a one of a kind, and so it would be hard for her really to I feel like take like she would have to hear this many times before it really sunk in.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's pretty common too in real life. I see
Mhm.
many different people that come in with trauma, and I could maybe put them into two main categories in terms of reception to talking about it. Whereas the first
Mhm.
category might be feeling very relieved and validated to have it labeled as trauma. Like, yes, I knew there was a reason that this impacted me so much, and I just needed to hear that it was okay for me to be reacting this way. And then another category entirely of people who either don't realize or refuse to accept that their trauma was traumatic. I've had people describe horrific things to me that happened to them and still try to say, but it wasn't that. It wasn't like this. It wasn't that bad. And then like there are words that we have to describe these things, but like, oh, that only happens to other people. That's not what happened to me, kind of a thing. And Nami is probably more in that second category there of she is so unilaterally focused on this goal of like this retribution, which she just sees it as like, this is what needs to happen to fix the situation. And she would not even accept for now the idea that she could set that burden down, and that it wouldn't mean that this is any more her fault, or that she failed her mother or her sister or the village or anybody. That would be something that she would take a long time to come around to. I totally agree. And it would
Yeah.
be one of those things where, like, maybe I, like, as you said, plant the seed that maybe there's other options there. Maybe we can unpack this more, but then have to pull back and have to just be very gentle with it. Because if we push on that too hard, not only could it re traumatize someone, but it could also just absolutely send them running and be like, I'm not ready to hear this kind of a thing. So, got to be very cautious about that. But it also sounds like Luffy and Zoro have already been kind of planting their seeds too, in terms of like the more that she's around these really genuine people who have these wonderful goals of like positive change in the world, the more she's realizing, like, oh, maybe my specific plans don't have to be just that. Maybe there is more out there. And that is really exciting for her.
Yes, because Luffy specifically wants her to be their navigator. And I don't think that she has ever felt important, or at least since her mom died, important or wanted or needed, or even thought about like, what do I want for myself? And I mean, this isn't a spoiler, but everyone that's on that crew is there for one reason or another that's for them. So Luffy, he wants to be the king of the pirates. So that's his reason. Zoro, he wants to be the best swordsman in the world, and that's his reason. And so Nami kind of then has to question, like, well, I've had this singular goal all this time, and now there's this option of like, oh, I can do whatever I want. So for Nami, it's creating a map of the world, of the seas. And so the fact that she could do that with this crew, of course she would be really conflicted.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I know that you've also worked with trauma a lot in the past, and you have some very specific trauma trainings. I'm curious to see what some of your short term goals would be with her.
Yeah. So for my short term goals, honestly, I think at first I would focus mostly on that decision that she's coming in to work on. So just processing with her that decision. So um, helping her notice feelings of guilt, helping with some coping skills, and yeah, just really focus a little bit on like what she's coming in for specifically, or what she's asking for. And I think the reason why I would focus on that in earlier on is because I kind of see her as someone who, how do I say this? So she knows that she has trauma. At least this is what I think in my mind. Like, she knows she has trauma, but she's, like you said earlier on, she's contained it very well, and is like, deal with this when my goal is completed. Like, I'll deal with all this later. And so I would kind of start to just help her talk through that decision of, do I betray these people or not? And then as we're doing that, because it is so tied in with her past trauma, or her current trauma. I mean, she's still with the Arlong Pirates. So because it is still it's so tied in with all of that, we would slowly start to do some psychoeducation on like, hey, you're feeling this way, you might be feeling this way because of this that happened in the past, tell me a little bit more about that. And then giving her some coping tools for those things. um so yeah, I think it would be a very gentle, slow process. And then once she's ready, I might recommend doing some so the type of therapy that I do, accelerated resolution therapy, I would recommend using that to process her grief and process what happened with the Arlong Pirates in her village when she was little. And then, once she's out of the situation with the Arlong pirates, then processing that as well through accelerated resolution therapy. But for now, it would really be a lot of noticing those feelings of guilt, labeling those feelings of guilt, labeling feelings in general, and helping with some psychoeducation on trauma. So I guess that's kind of like the short and long term altogether. So in the beginning, helping with the issue that she came in with, slowly helping her see, like, okay, this is bigger than I thought, and then giving her psychoeducation on trauma, and then processing that trauma when she's ready. Yeah, that's kind of my plan. How about you?
I think that sounds like an excellent plan. I completely agree about working on the emotional vocabulary. That tends to be one of my number one goals with most people, but especially when we're processing like really big emotions, even hidden ones, because a lot of the ways that we intentionally try to block ourselves from them are by not labeling them and forcing ourselves to not pay attention or notice them. And but at the same time, that's how they can sneak up on you when you get triggered and you don't even realize it, and then you're reacting to that trigger, and sometimes you still don't know that that's what's happening. And so having the emotional vocabulary, being able to stop and reflect and like, I'm feeling this right now, this is what's coming up for me right now. So a little bit of that mindfulness, a little bit of that recognition of your own feelings and checking in with yourself about how you're feeling, when and why and where. That would be really important, not only for opening up to processing it later on, but for managing when to apply those coping skills right now. So that would be really helpful as well. Then, additionally, some more psychoeducation about how we process trauma, what that looks like, what like falls in that category, what things tend to be helpful, maybe not so helpful in handling them. Just again, to be able to work on in the beginning, how do I recognize my emotions, my triggers, and then contain them when I need to? That is a really critical process of, even if we were to dive in and work on the trauma right now, that would be the critical first step to make sure that before we start opening that container and unpacking that information, we have to make sure we can recontain it, like before you walk out of my office again, that kind of a thing. And so focusing in the beginning on establishing like safety protocols for that, which what that looks like would be something of the client's own ability to contain on their own and then restabilize and basically, as Carla was saying, cope through that experience. So we in the trauma modality that I would likely use with her, EMDR, which is eye movement and desensitization and reprocessing. In a lot of ways, I've heard that and ART are very similar to each other. I can only say I've heard because I'm not trained in ART, and they are very tight lipped about how the process goes if you're not trained in it. But I've heard there are some similarities between the two modalities. And so I'm sure that in both of them, they include like lots of beginning steps of safety planning first. So that would be a huge part of it.
Yeah, I will say that art is a little different in that part of it, where there actually isn't so much, not that there's not safety planning, but there's not a lot of use of coping skills other than the eye movements. I will say that I generally like to teach my clients coping skills before, like grounding skills, things like that, before even doing art, just to make sure that they have them. But I will say that that's a key difference between EMDR and art, is that EMDR is very heavy. At least I'm not trained in EMDR, but from what I understand, it's very heavy on those grounding skills early on before even starting the actual eye movement reprocessing part. Is that correct?
I think there's different people that could potentially focus on that part differently. I tend to be
Hmm.
kind of heavy-handed with the like let's practice the safe calm place protocol together several times for a little bit. Let's practice the containment protocol together several times for a little bit before we ever get into the EMDR. Other people might just do it the once and then move forward. So it probably depends on the clinician as well. But yeah, there is like specific expected protocols of those two things, plus like introducing the concept of like describing to the client how the goal here is not to dive back in to those memories like you're reliving them and reopen those old traumas. And the point instead would be just to like notice flashes of them as they occur to you in your current life to deal with that reaction as opposed to feeling like you have to go back into those places. So, like a few different things that we would do to establish that safety there. And then I think, again, different clinicians might lean into them more or less. But yeah, I also described the overall process of EMDR recently to someone as if you have a line, and I'm sure ART actually works very similarly to what I'm about to describe, but you have a line of like books on a bookshelf. And it's kind of like they're all pretty in sync, but a couple of them are like pushed forward a little bit, and going through the process of desensitization and reprocessing is kind of like taking those individual books that have pushed out a little bit or standing out on the bookshelf, just pushing them back, lining them back on with all the rest of the books so that it's just a flush line. And that's the idea of like certain memories are sharp and cutting and painful and reactivate your fight or flight response that you had back then. And desensitization and reprocessing would be focused on put them in line with the rest of your memories so that you've processed them to the point where they don't cause that reaction anymore. They're still hurtful memories, but they're just memories now. That kind of a thing. That's my little book metaphor for it. But
Yeah.
I'd love to use that modality with, I think ART or EMDR would work great with her. I think in the beginning, what we both kind of touched on would be like for the short term goals, would be a lot slower of a process working towards that. And I might be pulling methods from like a cognitive processing therapy approach, which is another trauma modality where it's more about
Hmm.
like reframing these really negative cognitions, which is also a main focus in EMDR. And again, I'm sure ART, but a lot of this focus on kind of what we did in the intake, which was, you're saying this, I wonder if also this, where it's like you're saying you have to do this totally alone and people can't
Hmm.
help you. I wonder if there's another way to look at that, that kind of a thing. And so that's a very gentle way to probe into maybe it's possible that there could be other ways that you could be experiencing all of this that might, in the long run, feel a lot more doable for you. So
Yeah.
I think little bits of kind of talking her through, as you said, her big decision and everything that that decision brings up about her past,
Hmm.
and just kind of letting her process through in terms of like, let's talk about the decision, let's talk about the options. And as we're brainstorming, and just gentle little bits of like, oh, you said this, I wonder if also this, kind of a thing
Hmm.
to help continue those seeds to grow just a little bit, but
Yeah.
very gently and very slowly. I think overall that would be a goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so that's going to be it for this episode. I have to say that I'm really excited to do some more episodes on animes in the future. So just some ideas that I'm throwing out there that hopefully we could do in the future. There's an anime called Spy Family that I really like. There's always Naruto. They could use therapy. There's a lot of different animes where people can certainly use therapy. Maybe anime movies. One of my favorite anime movies is called Kiki's Flying Delivery Service, and if you watch it, you'll like it. You'll like that anime. It's a really good one. So yeah, I'm hoping that we can do some more animes in the future.
Yeah, we got a recommendation for Berserk.
Oh, that's right.
I have been very interested in Death Note for a while. And so I am willing to go watch it. And I've heard the warnings, but I'm willing to go watch it, or at least try to. And we'll see if it's something we can incorporate. It occurs to me as we're having this discussion that maybe we should do like an original movie or episode of Pokemon. That
Yeah,
could be fun.
that sounds fun.
Yeah. But yeah, other
Yeah.
than that, I think we have a lot of great ideas. We are always open to more ideas
Hmm.
for characters, for media sources. And remember, that can include, like, as long as the character is fictional, it can include any type of entertainment or media source whatsoever. So we're down for any of those kinds of suggestions. We can be found on our social medias. We are at Character Clinic Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We are on all podcast platforms that I know of. And Carla can be found online at Carla Pineda OCD for Instagram and TikTok. And she has her website, layerscs.com. And I can be found at Counseling with Haley on Instagram and TikTok.
If you would like to keep up with us, if you'll go ahead and follow our socials.
I have one more thing to plug that I just remembered. There have been a couple of times where at the end of the episode, at this exact moment, where you've described, like, oh, so if you're in Texas and over the age of 16 and you want me as your therapist, here's my website. And she's not really doing that anymore because she's like practically full, which is a huge accomplishment running her own practice. That is so impressive. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Like,
Yeah, I it's honestly it's been kind of a relief because I early, when you start your own practice, it's a little scary in the beginning. And so to have been able to fill up pretty quickly has been, I mean, really great, but also relieving because, when you own your own business, there's a lot of expenses that come along with that. So, yeah, it's just been great.
well, you deserve it. It's been very impressive to watch your journey, which has been really short, by the way. Like you just like gotten everything so far up off the ground just so quickly. Wildly impressive.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Okay, we will go for
Well,
real. See y'all next time.
yeah, we'll see you guys next time.